Rapsittie Street Kids in 2015. This one was rough. So, Rapsittie Street Kids is actually something I learned about because someone made an article for it on the wiki in 2014. At the time, I was a frequent user of a private torrent tracker for old movies which had a request section on it, and from reading about the movie, it just sounded so absurdly awful that I had to see it with my own eyes, Could it really be as bad as they say? So I put a request in for it on the torrent site, and not long after, another user there messaged me to tell me that they had successfully made contact with the director, Colin Slater, and that Colin was willing to sell a copy. So that immediately got my attention. I said to the guy, okay, awesome, thanks. I'll take over as point of contact from here and see exactly, what the finer details of buying this movie would be, the logistics of it all, and with me wanting to put it online and such. And so we agreed on having me be the point of contact from there on. I got in touch with Colin and things seemed great. He told me he didn't technically own copyright over the movie, but that the company that did no longer existed, and that putting it online shouldn't be an issue. We were getting along well, things were going smoothly, and after a couple of weeks we reached the point where I was ready to go ahead with the purchase, which I had to actually process in person at my local bank. It was going to be about 150 Australian dollars, which felt extreme, but I was willing to do it. Once I got to the bank, they told me there would be an additional $30 US transfer fee, which I just found ridiculous. So I emailed Colin back and asked, hey, would it be too much trouble to ask you to set up a PayPal account for this? The transfer fee is ridiculously high. And this is when he told me that he had not had one copy transferred at the lab, but two, before I had even paid him, mind you. And now he was down the cost of two transfers, or around 300 Australian dollars, and that he was not going to waste his time with me anymore. This made absolutely zero sense to me. Why would you get a digibeta tape digitized twice when you can just copy the first digital file in a matter of seconds? I never did get an answer about that either, but he did go on to tell me that he had had one copy transferred for the person who initially reached out, the guy on the torrent site, and one for me, even though I had already explained to Colin that I would now be taking over as the main point of contact, and I would be the one making the payment, and so on. So now, Colin is apparently down roughly 300 Australian dollars, and he is mad at me. Not great. I decided to sit on things for a couple of weeks until the new year, when I reached out to him once more on the first day of 2015, actually. Very calmly stating that I would be willing to pay the amount he was down, plus the bank fee, which would amount to 350 Australian dollars, which he accepted. So a few days later, I begrudgingly made my way to the bank to send him the outrageous amount of $350, all in the pursuit of this crappy movie. And then I waited. First a few days, at which point I sent him a follow-up email to check if he got the payment. And then a week had passed. Still no new emails from Colin. And then a month had passed with no sign of him. Still, despite my numerous messages. By this point, I was pretty angry, and, I let him know that over email, plus any other contact methods of his that I was able to track down. By the time 3 months had passed, I had pretty much given up and was just ready to accept that I'd been scammed and, make this a learning process, get some kind of silver lining out of it. Before I know it, it's July of 2015 and Rapsittie Street Kids is pretty much just a sad little blip in the back of my mind. But then someone in the Lost Media community lets me know that another Colin Slater film has just been uploaded to YouTube by the man himself. That movie being Dinosaur Island. So I decided to call him out in the comments and make public the fact that he had taken my money and then immediately ignored every single email that I had sent him after paying. And well, this time he finally noticed me. He locked the comments on Dinosaur Island and then finally replied to my emails, half a year after his last response. And then, after abusing me a little, he tells me that he had sent a transfer way back in January, but not to me, to the guy on the torrent site. Which I don't really believe him when he says that anyway, because the guy obviously would have said something to me if that were the case. But yeah, after a night of arguing back and forth with him on the phone, in my car, in between delivering pizza orders, I was working as a pizza delivery driver back then, and this whole final confrontation took place during one of my shifts, which wasn't much fun. He finally sent me the download link for the film, before once more reiterating that he does not own it. And I'm thinking to myself, after paying more than twice what I should have, you better believe I'm putting this online. And I did, as part of Found Media Week, which was in mid-September, which left me a nice couple of months to wait for everything to cool off before uploading it. I didn't want to risk getting into another confrontation with Colin, but thankfully that never happened. So, yeah, I never did speak to Colin again, and apparently he passed away a few years back. And, I genuinely hope he's resting in peace, and I hold no ill will towards him. He was a character, though, for sure.